So just to introduce myself, my role of Director of Research Grant Development is brand new for the university. It was an effort that was led by our Vice Provost of Research, Corinne Lunsfield. A couple years ago, she did listening sessions with a lot of the different departments on campus to see where the gaps are and the needs were between grant-seeking faculty and ORSP and how we could help fill those gaps. So my role came about as that effort. I started in January, and I'm actually a DU alum. I graduated from Cornell with my master's in international human rights, spent the last 5 years working in the refugee resettlement arena. So now I'm back and excited to help grow the grant-seeking efforts on this campus. So here is the agenda, if PowerPoint wants to cooperate. Okay. So we'll start just briefly talking about the concept of research development. This is similar to research administration, but it's becoming its own new entirely type of field among universities. We'll walk through all the different grant databases we have access to at DU, and I'll show you how to set up searches, identify different grant opportunities that may work for your research. We can walk through RFP and NOFO project alignment to look and see kind of when you read through one of those, how do you know if your project would align? RFP being request for proposal, NOFO being notice of funding opportunity. Pretty much same concept, just different agencies use different acronyms. We will walk through the proposal toolkit that my office rolled out recently. So this is an excellent resource where you can find all sorts of templates, guidance, instructions, anything you need to help guide your actual writing of a proposal. If anyone feels comfortable sharing about a current research project they're working on and need funding for, we could do like a audience example. Otherwise, we can save time for Q&A or just one-on-one conversation. So research development is this concept that encompasses a set of strategic, proactive, catalytic, and capacity building activities designed to facilitate faculty members, teams of researchers, and other central research administrations and centers in attracting external research funding, creating those relationships, and developing and implementing strategies to increase our university competitiveness in grant proposals. As I mentioned, this is new at DU. I am working towards building out a grant-seeking community of practice and promoting grant-seeking culture on our campus. This says research development team. As of now, it's just me, but hopefully eventually one day there could be more. And under research development, so under me, I'm rolling out services for prospecting, finding funding guidance, proposal writing support and review, and workshops like these. So we're going to dive into the rest of this is just a complete demo. So if you have your laptop, oops, we can hop into that. Let me get rid of this bar. Okay, so I will start by walking through all of the resources we have on our website, and from there show you how to navigate to all the different funding databases and how those work. So easy to start on du.edu/ORSP. And you'll want to go to the Sponsored Programs Administration page. So this is the direct team that I'm on. And if I go too fast, let me know. I can slow down. If you want to jump in with any questions, feel free. This can be a dialogue. So within this, there's several different tabs of information. The grant lifecycle is the one we'll focus on today. And so the grant lifecycle page sort of sets up everything you'll need to know for the life cycle of a proposal. So we have this handy little graphic showing sort of the steps of the different stages of proposal writing. And on the left-hand side, you can see there's the finding funding piece, which we'll focus on today. There's also proposal development, review and submission, et cetera, to help guide you just with information on what happens in that process and when you connect with our office. And before I dive into funding databases, I want to show you the proposal toolkit real quick. So that lives within proposal development. And it's on this left-hand side proposal toolkit. You can also navigate to it after scrolling down. And as you can see, this page is full of writing resources, information, budget resources. And if you are in the process of writing a proposal and would like editorial review or any support with writing, you can submit this form. This will go straight to me and we can set up a one-on-one to chat about it. I will not write it for you, but we can work on it together and I can help with the reviewing and rearranging pieces and helping you strengthen your proposal. So clicking on our toolkit, this lives within Digication, so you will need to use your OneDU sign-on to access it. Yes. It's on the proposal development page, yeah, and you'll see the button on the left-hand side, or since you're on mobile, if you scroll down a bit, you'll see the proposal toolkit button. So on this first tab, this is generic information that could be qualifiable for any agency, general DU, organizational information, sample language, verbiage, if you need to throw in a paragraph about DU's financial health or our history or, you know, how many departments there are on campus, you can find this information here. We also have a specific tab for NSF and NIH, National Science Foundation, and National Institutes of Health, since these are two of our primary federal funders. And they come with a lot of requirements. And so we have a whole bunch of templates and guidance on how to write specific sections for them. Same with NIH. And to be coming soon, we have a foundations tab, and I'm working closely with our foundation relations team and advancement to put together templates and guidance for writing to foundation funders. And lastly, there's this feedback tab. If you want to see something else, if you have questions on something, if something doesn't make sense or looks wonky, you're welcome to fill out this form and make those requests. We're looking for more ideas. So if there's even a specific funder you have in mind and you're not sure how to write for them, you're welcome to fill out that form. All right, so now I'm back on, ORSP's page. Is the Zoom still recording? Oh goodness, I'm not sure it is. I might have, sorry about that. We were trying to record this for everyone who couldn't be here and I might have broke it. So back on this page, we'll navigate back out to finding funding. And within this tab, so there's a bunch of different resources here. One thing you can do is request a finding funding consultation. So this form would go directly to me. This is a one-on-one meeting with me. It's similar to what we're going to be doing today of walking through the different resources you have access to. So since you'll have that information, you're welcome to request the one-on-one to then talk with me directly about your project. How can you build your grants long-term? How can you look for like leveraging that in your career? If you're have early career grants, but you're ready to move up, how can you leverage those grants? So we can talk through sort of like that cycle of development as you move forward in your career. We have this tab for internal seed funding. So these are the internal DU funding sources that I'm aware of. If you know of others that aren't on here, feel free to let me know. So this links out to various places on DU's website that show different internal opportunities and when those cycles run. Limited submission funding. So this shows the procedure of how we operate limited submission funding and a calendar for upcoming opportunities. Limited submission means that the sponsor or funder limits how many proposals an institution can submit to them. So what that means is we as DU need to host an internal competition to then select one person to move forward or two people depending on the sponsor's requirements. And this is done by a committee who puts out a request for an expression of interest. Faculty will submit that. The committee will be comprised of our VPR Kareen and any other faculty experienced in that discipline, and they'll review EOIs to select the person to move forward. And the tab you've all been waiting for, funding databases. So we can start walking through all of these. With this first drop down, there's a list of common DU sponsors. So these are primarily federal, but on each of their pages, you can also navigate to see current funding opportunities that they may have open. You can also find all these federal funding opportunities on grants.gov, which I'll show you today. Pivot will be where we spend a lot of our time, so I'll jump into that in just a second. So Pivot is one research grant database we have access to. And then I'll also show you how to navigate Colorado Grants Guide and Foundation Directory. I'm skipping over this tab called SPIN on purpose. SPIN is only accessible through InfoEd, which is our grants management system. If you don't have access to InfoEd yet, you will once you submit your first proposal through our office, and then you can use SPIN. But SPIN and Pivot pull in pretty much the same opportunities, so you don't need to worry about missing out on anything there. So starting with Pivot, if you want to set up your account with me, I can pause and we can sort of walk through that. Otherwise, if you already have an account, great, or you're welcome to set that up later. This first bullet point is instructions on how to do that. So it navigates to a slide deck on the library's website. So once you go to Pivot, you'll see the information to set up your account. You won't use your DU login. You'll just sign up with email and password, but you'll mark DU as an affiliated member institution, and then you'll be able to log in. Would you like me to pause while you set that up? Okay. So going to Pivot, oh, and I also want to point out here, within Pivot, there's different newsletters that you can sign up for that show you lists of funding opportunities that apply to your specific department. Let me get to Pivot. So I'm working with the research administrators in each department. I'm going department by department to build out funding newsletters. So far we have ones for NISM, Ritchie, MCE, GSSW, and next I believe I'll be rolling ones out for Psychology and Cause and GSPP. Yeah.
If you send those reports out, who does it go to?
It's anyone who wants to sign up. So yeah, I can show you how to sign up real quick. So, oh, excellent. So here's the landing page for Pivot. Once you have your account and login, this should look similar. And you should be able to go to groups. And you'll see these lists of public groups. And from there, you'll be able to sign up. Yours is going to look slightly different. You may not see all the members, but you'll be able to add yourself to that group. And this newsletter is bi-weekly, every other week. So you'll be able to start receiving those directly. You said you're a NISM? Okay. If you wanted to sign up for Ritchie as well, there might be some that cross over depending what your specific field is. And I know quite a few people have signed up for both. All right. So within Pivot, I can show you how to navigate to creating a search. I usually go straight to advanced search since that presents all sorts of different filters that you can use. Starting with keywords, this can be anything related to your field, or since the work you're doing is community engaged scholarship, we can use terms relevant to that. So I have one for community engagement. The funder tab is if you have specific funders in mind that you want to see, you can filter by them. Otherwise, you can leave it alone and it'll show everybody. Amount, if there's a specific amount you're looking for, more than, less than, or between. Deadlines, if you're in a hurry, you can filter this down. Otherwise, you can just leave it open to see what'll exist. I always like to check continuous and undefined because that shows the rolling deadlines that don't have a defined date. Limited submission, as I mentioned, would require internal DU coordination. So if you do happen to come across a submission or an opportunity that says limited submission and you're not seeing that I have it on the calendar online, feel free to let me know so that we can run that campus-wide competition so that you can be eligible to submit that. Applicant institution location. This would be DU. I usually filter down to Colorado. This doesn't exclude any opportunities that wouldn't otherwise apply to Colorado. So this pulls in all funders that would definitely fund our agency sitting in Colorado. And unspecified helps as well. Activity location, if you wanted to filter by this, let's say your work takes place in another country or in a different state, you can filter down by this to get a scope of those funders. Citizenship is a tab I typically leave alone unless you're looking for something very particular of work you're doing in a different country that involves perhaps colleagues that don't have US citizenship. Funding type, these are all of the different grant mechanisms that you can filter down by. So if you're getting a lot of results, you can go to here and filter that down. Or if you're looking for something very specific, such as a grant that would involve a clinical trial, you can filter by that. In this instance, especially for community engaged work where you would involve other organizations, I think collaboration would be good, perhaps events. I always like to check industry or business funding since that would pull in any private sector funders that Pivot has in its database. Perhaps program or curriculum development, definitely research and research projects, and then anything else that might seem like it would apply to your particular project. This keyword tab implies like if you wanted to have the keyword by discipline. So this is how Pivot kind of separates the various fields. I typically leave this alone unless, again, I'm getting way too many opportunities pulled in. Applicant type, this would be DU. So we are academic and we are nonprofit. So I usually click both to make sure we're seeing a large breadth of opportunities. Career stage, if you want to filter by opportunity that applies specifically to you, whether you're early career or mid-career, or if you're supporting undergraduate or graduate student work, you could filter down by those. There are several grants in Pivot that could apply to graduate student or pre-doc work if you wanted to support someone in finding that. Funder type, this is where you can filter down by who the sponsor is. If you're looking specifically federal or non-federal, you could filter here. Otherwise, you could leave it alone to see everything. And lastly, country of funder. Unless your work is international, I usually just start right away with filtering by the US to see what exists here. And then if you're not finding any luck and wanted to start looking into other sponsors elsewhere, you could change those filters. And then in this second half, these are all the same filters, but it's to exclude those things. So this first half was include these things, and then you can also exclude things. So for example, when I do this, you can already see my saved data. I exclude Fulbright a lot because it seems like it's always pulled into my searches and it's not necessarily what faculty are looking for. So you can exclude some keywords like that. Okay, and then search. Okay, so this gives us 134 results. Again, I had a broad keyword of just community engagement, so you can have that and your discipline, or if you wanted to work within a specific sector, you can add in all those different things to continue filtering down. And you will see when it has limited in all caps, that implies this limits mission. So to click on one of them, it'll give you a brief overview of what this opportunity is, and it also links out directly to their website. So typically I like to just go straight there to see the most relevant up-to-date information and see what that sponsor is all about. All right. So you can, once you have your search made, you can save it with this button underneath. You can give it a name, and if you want, you can opt into a weekly email or not. So this is Pivot would just email you the most recent opportunities pulled into the search once a week. So you wouldn't have to then filter back through ones you've already dismissed. You can also share this with others, and you can refine. You can also copy. So let's say that all of these settings are great. You only want to change the keyword. You can click refine. adjust the keyword. Let's say we want to do community and you're working with a nonprofit that focuses on low income. And then you can save this again and it would save as a new search. To see all your saved searches, if you hover over this home button, you can go to all of those under Save Search. And then there's also a variety of pre-made searches that are public, and you would find those under Curated Opportunities. And so you can also use those searches as a starting point. So you can look and see what already exists, edit it via the Refine Search button, and then save that, and it would save to your profile as your own personal search. So I did create a handful pertaining to community work. So this is the whole list right now of like all the different public searches. So we have community engagement. I have community and immigrant work, community and low income, community and people of color. Just trying to think of other like types of work that community nonprofits would be focusing on. So that is another way you can navigate, is to take one of the existing searches and edit it. Any questions or concerns at the moment?
But the curated searches are created by you or somebody else?
By me. There are a handful that were already in existence before I started, and I believe Noel Strom and Cause created those. So there's still a lot of different topics to choose from. All right. I think that's it for Pivot. So going back to ORSP's page, funding databases. Oops. Additional ways to find opportunities. I can now show you how to check out Colorado Grants Guide Foundation directly in grants.gov. So when you click on that, it'll take you to this landing page at the library, and this shows the 4 directories and databases that we've talked through. So Pivot links out here as well. In order to log into Foundation Directory and Colorado Grants Guide, you have to go through this library page because it connects to your DU login so that you can have access, since those 2 services are a specific special subscription that DU has. So starting with Foundation Directory, do DU login. All right, so as the name implies, this is primarily foundations, although you can toggle on and off US federal funders. These funders are primarily programmatic grants, as opposed to Pivot is like specific to universities for research grants. A lot of nonprofits use Foundation Directory. So this would also be helpful if you're partnering with a nonprofit and perhaps they were going to lead the grant and have DU as a sub. This would be another way that you could help support them in finding a grant that mutually benefits you and them. So under advanced search, there's not very many filters to play with, so you'll want to keep it simple to start. Subject area. Is there one? Okay, we could do community and economic development. Let's see what community improvement looks like. Okay, let's do community improvement and see where that takes us. So this produces thousands of options. So you can filter down a little further. Once you have that initial search, you can see a few more boxes pop up that allow you to filter further. We could throw in a keyword. What would be a good keyword? What's everyone's discipline? Wellness. Nice, that drops us by quite a lot. So you can filter down there. You can also, if you're serving a specific population, you can also filter by that, and that will help as well. So this shows grant makers, grant programs, recipients, and tax forms, if you're curious. So I typically just look at grant makers, although you can look at grant programs. And on the flip side, if you know of someone who does similar work or an organization in particular that you wanted to partner with, you can look at recipients and see what they have received before. You can also do that by going through tax forms to see like where people have gotten their funding before. So that's another fun little rabbit hole you can go down if you're not having much luck finding funding. You can look and see like, do I know of any other agency that does similar work to me? Where do they get funding from? Could that be applied to me? So going to viewing all grant makers, we have our list of 2,000 and some. You can also filter here by total giving or total assets. And let's take a look at Robert Wood Johnson. Robert Wood Johnson Foundation is a popular one for DU. We do get grants from them, and a lot of faculty find that they align well with their work. They primarily fund health, human rights, community and economic development. Here's sort of the states where they do their work. And their grants are a decent size, which is why they're appealing to faculty, with the most being between 100,000 and $500,000. Whoops. There we go. So this profile that it gives for every foundation is really nice because as you scroll down, you can see all sorts of information about them. You can see who received grants from them before. You can see in more detail what their funding interests are. And this section is really great because it shows you other funders to consider. So let's say you go to their website, they look great, but they don't have any active grant cycles coming up and you need something now. You can look and see who the other similar funders are, go to their website and see if they would be a good fit for your project. And at top, it always links out to their website. So you're able to navigate there and see what those most recent grant cycles look like. Something else that this database is really helpful for is discovering foundations. So I recently met with a couple PIs in MCE who wanted to find funding for their work that they're doing rurally, and they're hoping to see if there's any sort of like businesses that would fund their project. And one of their suggestions was, what about John Deere? And so we were able to type in John Deere and find out that there's a charitable arm of John Deere. So then we discovered John Deere Foundation, went to their profile, went down the rabbit hole, got to see who they fund. So that's another way if you know of like an industry that could in theory fund your work, but you don't know how that would look, you can start to see if they have some sort of charitable arm. All right. Any questions on this one? Oh, where did I want to be? All right, let me navigate back to the libraries page. So the next one I want to show you is Colorado Grants Guide. This again requires signing in through this specific library page. Colorado Grants Guide, as the name implies, is grants specific to Colorado. Something that I've found is that while Pivot pulls in a ton of federal and private opportunities, they're lacking in terms of public state funding. And so Colorado Grants Guide fills that gap, and that you can see all the different Colorado Department of whoever grants that the state is operating, as well as county and local city. So we can go to the search. And on the left-hand side is where you'll see your filters. We could look at area of interest. So if there's any particular group you're working with or field that you want to filter by, we could take a look at, let's see here. How about community and public affairs? So just filtering by that, it shows 215 grants, and then you can go through and filter down however else you see fit. And then when you click into them, let's go with Laura Jane Messer. This will again show you a profile of the funder and allow you to navigate directly to their website so that you can see what they're all about and who their current, what their current grant cycles are. So operates very similar to all the other ones, except it's Colorado centric. Any questions or concerns? Okay. All right, so those are the 3 databases, and then we have grants.gov. So you don't necessarily have to go through the library for that one. And you don't need an account for this one either. So grants.gov is all things federal. At the top, you can go straight to search grants. You can filter by keyword, and you can filter by eligibility or agency. So I feel like filtering by agency is probably you'll get the best results that way. So if you're looking for anyone in particular, it has them all listed. So we could take a look at, let's look at NEH, National Endowment of Humanities. So clicking on them, it can show forecasted or posted. Forecasted implying they will post something eventually. If we filter back to just posted, these are all the active opportunities now for NEH. You can click into those, see more information about the grant cycle dates, the award amount, and then under related documents, you'll find their no further notice of opportunity announcement to then get all of those details. All right, those are all of the databases. And then I can also take a minute to walk through a couple sample RFPs and NOFOs to give you an idea of like some things that you could look for and keep an eye out for. So this first one I have pulled up is NSF, National Science Foundation. And when navigating National Science Foundation, it is quite a lot, but you can look for different directorates to see like if you're in the physical sciences or social sciences to make sure your directorate kind of falls within this opportunity. When looking at table of contents, program description will give you a general overview of what they're hoping for, so then you can think through if your project aligns. And eligibility is another major one to double check. So you'll want to make sure DU as an institution is applicable. And then this is also where it would tell you if there's any sort of limited submission requirements. If there are, we would need to, as a university, do that internal selection. There also, depending on the agency, may be specific PI requirements. So you may need to be a certain level in your career, associate or full professor, or you may need to have X amount of partners. So there are quite a few grants where community engagement isn't just encouraged, but it's required, and you need to be able to deliver your project in full collaboration with another community nonprofit to benefit X amount of people. I don't think there's anything else I was going to point out on this page. Deadlines are ones to keep an eye out for. But definitely when looking through, eligibility is a big one. So if you know that DU and yourself is eligible, then you can double check alignment to see if they would accept your project. When it comes to federal funders, especially NSF, they always have people to contact listed at the bottom of the page. And you're not just encouraged, sometimes you're required to then reach out to the program officer, get a one-on-one, share about your project, and they will tell you if it's worth it to apply, if it aligns well, or in some cases, they'll direct you to a different program that would align better. And when contacting federal program officers, you don't need to ask permission from anyone. You're welcome to just go directly to them. I say that because foundations are different. So I have this pulled up for Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. So how foundation work is structured at DU, our foundation relations team and advancement, which is a fairly new team, is working to sort of centralize relationships so that as faculty come and go from the university, they don't take relationships with them, and other faculty miss out on like a chance to cultivate that and receive grants from them. So this team is building out a database to keep track of all the different foundations that we have partnerships with. They meet one-on-one with program officers to further build those relationships. They try to get their foot in the door, new foundations nationally and locally that may have never heard of us before. And so when you find a foundation grant that you want to apply to, it's important to make sure that your research administration team in your department knows about it so that they can work with that foundation relations team to make sure that they're looped into any important communications. And you don't want to just directly reach out to the program officer. You want to go to that team first to see if they already have a relationship built. So for this opportunity, this is for innovative research to advance racial equity. It offers a description of what the specific projects are that they are willing to fund, eligibility and selection criteria, key dates, and then that was just the summary. So then, of course, you can look at the full funding opportunity to see if your project would align. And Robert Wood Johnson is another one where even though it's a foundation and it's funding research, they really like to see that community impact. So you want to make sure that you're working with a community nonprofit organization to then further the extent of your work. Any questions? Okay. I believe that was just about everything.